Yo, what's going on, Time Planet? It's your boy King Tinex here back with another video, and you guys already know the deal. This is going to be what if Yuji, interestingly enough, was a wielder of the Rinnegan, or what if Yuji had the Rinnegan. This is going to be the first time I do a Jujutsu Kaisen order, so wish me luck, y'all. Hopefully it comes out good. Yuji Itadori was a peculiar kid. He was born a bit different from the others. For some reason, he had a strange pair of purple eyes with several rings within said eyes. It creeped out quite a few of the kids throughout the years. Many of them would make rude comments about his eyes. Some honestly found it to be rather creepy enough to the point that they would try to avoid him like he was the plague. They would try to even make him feel ashamed of his eyes, while others throughout the years they would try to make him feel more ashamed of his eyes rather than actually fearing it. His grandfather was there for him though throughout these times. He was always there to encourage him to keep his head up in these sort of situations, because many people would try to put him down for his unique eyes. But the way his grandfather would tell Yuji to see his eyes would be simply this: that he was blessed with a special pair of eyes. Sure, Yuji was different, but that was okay. As a matter of fact, since Yuji was blessed with these special pair of eyes, there was probably a bigger purpose to these eyes later on in the future, besides, well, having an unusual look. This comment from his grandfather throughout the years would honestly motivate Yuji. Though the negative comments about his eyes never really stopped, Yuji decided to not let these words faze him as much. He would keep his grandfather's words in his mind whenever people tried to make him feel ashamed of his eyes. The older that Yuji got, the more he noticed things that others didn't seem to notice as well though. Could this be one of the special properties of his eyes? He wasn't all that sure. But it started off as this. At first, he would just see these strange creatures in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and he just thought that it was his overactive imagination running wild. But by the time he became a teenager, he was still noticing these strange creatures in certain areas. He didn't really know why. He also questioned why no one else was able to see the same things as him though, because at this point it wasn't just his imagination anymore, or at least he hoped it wasn't his imagination. He didn't want to believe that he was going crazy. But another thing ended up happening. The scientist's curiosity of his eyes growing by the day, Yuji's grandfather was getting weaker by the day, to the point that when Yuji was around the age of 14 years old, his grandfather became so ill that he was forced to be admitted into a hospital. Yuji would do his best in order to visit his grandfather every day around 6 p.m, at least on school days. When it came onto the weekends, that was essentially where he was the whole time, just trying to spend time with his grandfather. But the old man would try to push his grandson away each and every time. He would comment on how he should spend his time making friends instead. Yuji insisted though on staying with his grandfather until his grandfather's words eventually got to him. He eventually decided to take the time out to make a couple of friends at school. He became friends with a couple of kids and even joined their club as well. But he would still do his best to make time for his grandfather. One night though, Yuji would come to visit his grandfather, and although he at first thought the old man was asleep, he would notice something. He noticed that his heart monitor, it had gone flat. His only family, they just died. They just died this very night, and Yuji, he would be distraught for understandable reasons. This guy was his only family. This was a man that raised him since he was, well, for basically as long as he could remember. Practically his whole entire childhood was more so focused around his grandfather raising him. He didn't even know his parents were crying out loud, although sometimes his grandfather would try to bring up his parents, but Yuji, he did not really care to know about them. As far as he was concerned, there was nobody else but his grandfather, which made it hurt even more when realizing that he was dead. The nurses, they would escort his grandfather's body out to the room not too long later, and the boy, he would just try to fill out some paperwork and take the time out to grieve. Unfortunately, he would not get such an opportunity. You see, a black-haired boy would actually make his way into the hospital and introduce himself to Itadori. His name was apparently Megumi Fushiguro, and he was looking for a cursed object. Yuji wasn't really all that familiar with the term, but apparently this kid was claiming that Yuji was in the possession of one that was extremely dangerous. Okay, now Yuji was getting confused. What was so dangerous about this cursed object? What even was a cursed object? Yuji would question all of this, to be honest, because this kid was talking about the cursed object, and now he was also bringing up curses, because this cursed object that Yuji just so happened to have actually could attract curses in all shapes and sizes. Yuji would question what a curse was and what a cursed object was. Megumi would mention how he didn't really have a whole lot of time, but he would just explain the basics, and when it came onto curses especially, this would get Yuji's interest because of how he explained it. He just explained that they were a manifestation of humans' negative emotions, that they were like monsters that came in all shapes and sizes. And with the description of these quote-unquote monsters, this would cause for Yuji's eyes to widen. This was the first time that Yuji was hearing somebody mention seeing the same sort of stuff as him. He would be invested in Megumi's story and search in his book bag for the artifact before handing him the box. He had taken it from like one of those school sheds or something along those lines. I don't know what's the proper word for it. But Megumi, when he opened up the box, he realized it was empty. This realization would upset the boy. Yuji would right then and there remember handing one of his friends' finger, and one of his friends from the occult club. Apparently they were going to try to unwrap it tonight. They were hoping to summon spirits with this weird finger. This naturally actually alarmed Megami. They actually really needed to go now. There was absolutely no way that they could just let that person unwrap that finger, because, well, he's already explained it before, but several curses would immediately come and attack them, hoping to consume that finger, and who knows what would happen if they consume that finger. The two would head to Yuji's high school in hopes of making it before Yuji's friends unwrap the wax concealing the cursed object. But Yuji would immediately feel a strange, overwhelming sensation when he made it to the school. He'd realize that they were too late. His friends had opened up the seal already, but maybe, just maybe, there was a chance that they were still alive. Megami, he would rush forward, summoning a pair of wolf-like creatures in order to aid him in battle. Yuji, he would be on a more hesitant side though, at first. He never really had experienced anything like this before. So many curses were oozing inside of this building and he was scared. He was seeing all of these curses all at once, and all these different shapes and sizes. He was used to seeing like some of them, but they were usually just scattered, not such a dense amount, such scary monsters. He was scared of dying, but he would see Megami cutting down on most of these curses in hopes of making it to Yuji's friends before they were killed. He would realize right then and there just how cowardly he was acting. Not only this, but the whole issue of death was something that confused Yuji. He was seeing Megami basically risk his life in order to save Yuji's friends, and he was so scared right now. He was unnerved. This was Yuji's thought process, but he was also thinking back to when his grandfather died. He wasn't scared or anything. He was sad, sure, but he knew that his grandfather died peacefully. His friends, though, this wasn't how they were supposed to die. They needed a more respectful or a respectable way of dying. This wasn't their time yet. With all of this going through Yuji's mind, he would rush in basically. He understood that his grandfather raised him to be better than this after all. He would be lying if he said that he wasn't still scared in this moment, even while he was running, but he would do his best to suppress it for right now. He understood what was more important. He would barge into the building, coming from the 4th floor in order to help out Megami. Yuji, he would arrive just in time to rescue his friends, and Megami, he would actually be grateful that Yuji arrived at the time he did, since that was a very close call back there. He honestly had to admit, because these curses, they were getting a bit too out of hand. Some of them he just couldn't handle anymore, at least without a distraction. Yuji just came in at the right moment. He really did have to thank Yuji for that. And after he finished taking down the rest of these curses, Megami, he would want to try and retrieve the cursed object, Sukuna's finger, and he would comment on the nature of Yuji's eyes while doing it. What exactly were they? Since his first meeting with Yuji, he noticed that the boy was full of cursed energy, with a lot of it being focused around his eyes for whatever reason. From their interaction so far as well, it was clear that Yuji wasn't a jujutsu sorcerer by any means either, which it just continued to confuse Megumi. What exactly was Yuji? Yuji was about to reply, but he would be interrupted by a sudden crash landing made by a curse from the floor above. Wow, just great. Megami, he would immediately push Yuji out of the way. He would end up getting captured by the curse instead though. Yuji, he would try his very best to help Megami out of his current predicament, but it would be of no use. He could only harm the monster using cursed energy. At least that's what it seemed to be. He noticed how Megami was able to fight. He also noticed these strange wolf-like creatures, and he was scratching his head as to how they appeared. But he figured that it might just be because of something that Megami has. He always talked about negative well, not always, but he was talking about negative emotions back at the hospital that humans had, and then he was also talking about cursed energy. His eyes or something had a lot of cursed energy, and now he's realizing that these creatures that Megami summoned, they were probably made up of cursed energy. But now Yuji was trying to fight. He was actually trying to fight on Megami's behalf, but he did not necessarily know how to wield cursed energy. This was an issue. He didn't know how to use cursed energy whatsoever. He was beginning to lose ground against the monster as well, and he was beginning to panic. Megami was the only one who seemed to be capable of injuring these monsters, while Yuji, he was meant to be more of a distraction up until now. But currently, Megami was in a compromised position. If Yuji didn't act quick, then who knows what would happen. Everyone here was probably going to die. There was no guarantee that there was going to be somebody else who could be the knight in shining armor. Nobody to save them, and if that was the case, Yuji did not want to die here. Yuji did not want anybody else to die here in such an improper manner. Yuji was trying to think of anything else he could possibly do, but he was pulling constant blanks. That was until he just remembered a second ago about Megami's comment. Once again, this comment would go through his mind. Something about his eyes and their strange properties, with them seemingly having an abundance of cursed energy. Was this what his grandfather meant by his eyes being special? Time would slow down for Yuji as he saw Megami about to be eaten. Oh no. Practically on instinct though, 2 words would be uttered out of Yuji's tongue. And yeah, that's basically it for right now, Time Clan. You guys already know the deal. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you have been rocking my content for a little while, you may as well just hit that subscribe button. Share if you know anybody else who is interested in this sort of content. Oh, and leave a comment. And yeah, let's just roll out an outro.